Good morning. We're just going to give everybody a few moments to join the session. Hope everybody is well this morning. Starting to see numbers come in. Always that bit at the beginning of webinars, isn't it? Where
It
you're just
is.
waiting
It
uh,
is.
for
It's
people
just
to arrive. Have they found the link and
have they
anything else?
finally? Is it working? Yeah. Have they got their coffee
So
lined
we'll
up
give it, we'll
Thursday
give
morning?
everybody 30 seconds. Those that are in the room at the moment, can you just perhaps pop something in the chat box for us? Let us know that you can see the screen, you can see Mel and I, and perhaps tell us where you are this morning and what the weather's doing. Always a good discussion starter, isn't it? It's cloudy in Norfolk at the moment, although Mel's got some sunshine. Where are you, Mel?
I am in Surrey, just west of Heathrow, and actually, for the first time and in as long as I can remember, it's not raining. So yeah, I'll take that as a bonus. Yeah, we'll have that as a good Thursday.
Excellent. So I
Yeah.
always get nervous when I ask people to put things in the chat and nobody puts anything in the chat. So if anybody is there and can, there we go. Somebody's put something
Ah,
in
there
the
we go. I can see the chat. Oh, it's
excellent. Blue skies in Luton.
Blue
Excellent.
skies in Luton.
Thank you,
Hello,
Dan.
Thomas. Cool.
Right. Let's get underway and kick off today's session. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. Delighted that you can join us this morning, where we are going to be talking about filling the advisory skills gap. I'm delighted to have Mel with me. We'll do some introductions just in a moment. But to kick things off, a couple of housekeeping bits. I always like to try and finish these webinars by quarter two, or sorry, 45 minutes, so quarter to 11 for us today. Just in case you've got another appointment on the hour, it gives you a chance to fill your coffee cups, do whatever it is you need to do. We like these to be interactive, so do give us questions, pop any questions into the Q&A box, any comments, observations, feel free to use the chat box and Mel and I'll keep an eye on that as we go through the session. So that is the plan. So we will kick off and get underway. So firstly, for those that don't know me, my name is Will Farnell. I'm founder of Farnell Clark and co-founder and director at App Advisory Plus. I've had the pleasure of writing a couple of books over the last 5 years. The first being a digital firm, and the second being the human firm. That second book is going to be of particular interest today as we talk about some of the things that both Mel and I share passionate views on, that we have so much more to offer our clients. So we'll talk through some of that during the course of the session. As I say, delighted to be joined by Melanie today. Mel, would you like to just introduce yourself for anybody that doesn't know you?
Sure, yeah. So my name's Mel. I am customer success specialist at Spotlight Reporting. My background is I'm a chartered accountant, so I qualified with KPMG a while back, and I then moved into actually running my own firm. So I had my own accountancy firm, which was purely compliance driven. It was horrific, well, but yeah, I had about 50 clients in its peak, no advisory whatsoever. Lots of people bringing me everything in a brown paper bag and shoebox of receipts. But yeah, successfully ran that for 13 years. And then COVID hit, I sold the firm and I moved into tech, which I've always been fascinated in the tech and the digital space. So I've been with Spotlight for 2 years. I basically speak to a lot of accountants. So I look after all of our accountancy firms in the UK, in EMEA, and also in North America now as well. So my day is,
Amazing.
yeah, really interesting. Talking to firms about how they're approaching advisory and how they're breaking into advisory. Yeah, and using.
So lots of really valuable insights from both sides of the fence that we're going to share today.
Brilliant.
In terms of interesting to explore why you had an accounting firm doing just compliance, but the
Yeah,
reality, as we're going to discover, is that's what it looks like for most firms, and we're going to try and
yeah,
explore kind of why that is, and
yeah,
draw on your experiences that you have now talking to firms that are doing this successfully,
yeah.
and the lessons from helping firms kind of make a start on this process. Um,
Good.
so that's the plan. Going to be lots of insights for you all today, and this is broadly what we're going to cover. So we've done some welcomes and introductions. We're going to start shortly by talking about the current advisory landscape. So, what does it look like? What's going on? What's driving um, any change that we might be seeing, and we'll draw on Mel's experience there. We're going to talk about the impact of the advisory skills gap. Now, that point is making an assumption that there is an advisory skills gap. So the first thing we need to explore is that the case? Or is it that we have the skills, they're just not being deployed? So that's kind of broad nature of that part of the conversation. We're going to talk about what Mel and I, and from Mel's experience, think the key skills are. What is it that's stopping us doing more advisory? Where are the gaps, and what can we do to fill it? And the third part is exactly that. What are the strategies? How can we fill that gap? How can we make sure that our teams are equipped to identify and deliver these added value opportunities? We'll have time for questions at the end, but as I've already said, if you have questions during the session, if there's anything that either of us say that you would like to ask a question on, pop it in the Q&A box and we will jump onto it at the best opportunity. So before we kick off, Mel, just in case anybody doesn't know, do you want to tell us a little bit about Spotlight, who you are, what you do,
Yeah.
where you started, and what the
Sure.
problem was that you were trying to solve?
Yeah, so Spotlight Reporting was started by our CEO and CFO, so Richard and Julie Francis. They are based in New Zealand. It started 13 years ago, I believe now. So it's a cloud-based business intelligent reporting tool, and it's purely for it's a Zero, QuickBooks Online, and Sage 50 add-on to produce some really funky, beautiful looking reports, management reports, as well as a three-way forecasting tool. So yeah, really for accountants, advisors to not have to use Excel all the time and to create some really nice looking reports with some, I think we've got over 160 different charts you can add in now, which all come in automatically with the data coming in straight from a cloud system. So yeah, going back to my day, I had nothing like that when I was doing it. I don't think I knew that
Yeah.
that existed. So yeah, the aim is to
And
really, highlight what's out there to clients and really help them and help them know and understand their numbers, which is hugely important, obviously.
yeah, and I mean 13 years, that takes us back to 2011, which
Yeah.
makes Spotlight one of the very first
Yeah.
uh tools in particularly the Zero ecosystem.
Yes,
Um
absolutely.
so
That's right. Yeah.
you've been around a long time. For those
Um,
that know my journey, we were fully cloud enabled in 2009.
wow. Yeah. Okay.
And there were very little vendors in the space compared to what we have
Yes.
today.
Yeah.
Spotlight have very much led the charge in this area. So uh,
Yeah.
huge
Absolutely.
kudos to Richard and Julie for jumping on that very early on, and building and developing a product over the last 13 years.
So,
Let's talk about advisory landscape then,
yeah.
Mel. What's
Yeah.
your summary? I mean, you've been with Spotlight a couple of years now.
Yeah.
You were running your own firm before that. Uh,
Yeah.
what's your take on where we are with the idea of advisory right now?
Interesting. So, I mean, even in the time I've been at Spotlight, I can see the advisory landscape has changed. Everybody knows that advisory has been a buzzword or the buzzword in accountancy for as long as I can remember. We did a global advisory trends report, and that surveyed 1,400 of our big accountancy practice customers. Um, and this was done. We do it annually. It was done, I think it was last November, the last time we did it. So as at the last one we did, I think 29% of those 1,400 firms we surveyed said that yes, advisory was now a big part of their percentage of their fees, their fee revenue. And only 2% of those firms said they weren't interested in doing advisory at all.
Yeah,
So I think, I mean, I don't know how you take those results, Will, but I think that the advisory landscape is really shifting.
yeah,
More people are finding that they've got more time because they've got, I know that you're going to touch on it in a minute, but they've got tech stack set up nicely. They've got bits of AI coming in, so they've set up a nice firm with with the tech doing a lot of a lot of the hard grind,
Yeah.
um, and they've got the time to do it. So I think change is definitely underway without a
Yeah.
shadow of a doubt.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think we're seeing it from a number of angles. I think we're seeing it from tech. So the first challenge really is that advisory starts with good data.
yeah,
Um, uh,
definitely.
and and historically, we struggled to get good data because
Yes.
as accountants and bookkeepers, we were dealing with data that was probably
Oh,
six, 10 months out of date, whatever, at the point
yeah,
we were picking it up.
yeah,
The technology that's available to us now means we've got this data at our fingertips. And if we're using that technology properly,
yeah,
we've got inbound data every single day from bank feeds, from pre-accounting tools. So we have the ability to perhaps address one of the first challenges of advisory is that, well, we kind of have got nothing to look at to drive the conversations. We now
yeah,
have that data.
yes,
So the
100%.
next
Yeah.
question is, are we looking at it in a way to drive the conversations? And
Yeah,
and I think the second bit is around client expectations are changing.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
clients are beginning to realize that they're getting better visibility of what's
yeah,
going on in their business, and they're therefore able to ask questions. Well, how come that's not as good as it was last month? Or how come that's not as good as it was last year? What's going on? My numbers are all here and I'm making profit, but I've not got money in the bank. Whereas
yeah.
before they probably didn't know they were making profit because they didn't
No
have the,
clue.
the
No.
ability to run a quick report.
Yeah,
Is
totally.
that fair? Are we seeing that kind of shift in client expectations and attitudes as well?
I think we are because I look at it in two different ways, Will. I think there's the historical type of advisory. So, you can look back at people's data and yeah, you've got data at your fingertips now in Zero or wherever it is. And you can produce some nice looking historical management reports on that data.
Mm.
So there's the education piece on that. And I think that's what people have been churning through in the last 12 months or so. Yeah, let's educate our clients on what drives gross profit. What is that number made up of, and let's teach them some
Yeah,
KPIs. The
yeah,
client most of the time hasn't really got a good understanding of all of that information before. But now what I'm starting to see is what I call the forward-looking juicy advisory, as my customers are talking about
yeah,
forecasting led advisory. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So what can you do with that historical data that the reporting side is churning out? And oh look, what can we do? Can we create some different scenarios and can we look at a three-way cash flow forecast and we can, what will happen to my cash if I do take on an extra hire purchase agreement for a van or whatever it is.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, you can
But
make some real big decisions based on that data. And I think I've got people coming towards me now asking about forecasting in a much bigger way than they were before.
yeah,
Um,
that's really positive because part of my frustration is that I talk to accountants and bookkeepers and they're still doing bookkeeping on a quarterly basis.
yeah, yeah,
And that doesn't provide the foundations that we need to deliver real kind of advisory based on real-time data.
no,
But what we haven't done here, and I think we probably just need to roll back and do it, is we've all heard the term advisory.
yes,
I've often asked rooms full of people what does advisory mean, and you get a different answer from everybody. So when you're talking and obviously you're supporting firms on a day-to-day basis to do advisory,
yeah.
what are we talking about from your perspective here?
That's a really interesting question, Well, I can see why you get so many different answers on it. I think that the average person is basically looking at not just their business, but their whole being. So
Yeah.
advisory is all about asking questions. Everyone knows that. And
I don't know they do. I don't know they
maybe
do.
they don't.
I
Yes.
think that's a really and
Okay.
I think that's perhaps when we get into the skills, one we definitely
Yes.
need to kind of hold because yes,
Yes.
I agree with you totally. It's about asking questions and
Yes.
answering questions.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that everyone quite appreciates that. I think the majority probably don't actually, but carry on. Sorry.
Yeah. So I think the advisory piece is looking at the whole person and
Hmm.
finding out exactly what they want to do. Not just tax advice. You're not just, and a lot of people, a lot of firms I talk to say, "Oh yes, I do advisory. I already do it." Because somebody just rang me and they asked me if I should have an electric car nowadays and what the tax implications of that are for my limited company. That is not advisory, I would say. That's tax advice.
Yeah.
People have been doing that forever.
Yeah.
Advisory is the juicy stuff, the how to actually change the numbers by making significant changes to your business. So
Yeah.
let's reduce our debtor days down to 30 days and see what the cash impact of that is. Interesting KPI driven stuff that will actually transform the business itself and
Yeah.
then produce the results. Produce the results if you want to exit in 3 years' time, produce a much higher valuation for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not
So,
the
so
car piece. Yeah.
Yeah, so it is it starts with the business owner, doesn't it? It starts with
Yeah.
the what the business owner themselves are trying to achieve.
Yes.
Because actually our advice to the business has got to be about delivering what the business owner wants.
Yes.
And that's where the asking questions bit comes in, doesn't it? It has to start
Totally.
with asking questions, and what we'll come on to is, well, whose responsibility is that to ask the questions? Who in
Yeah.
your firm is it that has responsibility for asking those questions?
Yeah.
Um, at what point of the engagement do we need to be asking those questions?
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
we'll kind of come on to onto all of that. I think just to close the loop on that, for me, advisory is firstly anything that isn't compliance.
Yeah.
Um, so anything that isn't part of the compliance process.
Yeah.
Bookkeeping is part of the compliance process because
Yeah.
it's that part of that process. But as soon as we start to get outside of the compliance bit, which in reality is probably for many of the people listening to this, is anything that you're not charging for on a month by month basis. So
Yeah.
anything that is included in your fixed fee
Yeah.
in the majority of accounting firms' processes is probably advisory,
Yes.
because we probably haven't built advisory into our recurring monthly fees.
Probably
I'm not
haven't.
saying that you can't do that, but the
Yes.
reality is probably that you haven't.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and I often say to people that my firm will be doing advisory when every client we've got picks up the phone and asks every question they've got. Um,
Yes. Yes.
and
Absolutely.
that that's because you've built relationships.
Yeah.
You've built relationships that makes you front of mind
Yeah. Yeah.
in everything that your client thinks about. And when the client calls you, you can either answer it on the phone then and there, dead easy. You've won some brownie points. You can say, we can absolutely help you with that. We'll send you a proposal. Or you can say, that's not something we can help you with, but we know somebody that can and we'll make an introduction. So it's
Yeah.
like a win-win,
Yes.
whatever the outcome of that.
Yes,
Um,
it's
so
cementing that relationship. It's all about the relationship and where it can take you. And it's interesting the piece you've just said about the fixed monthly fees and things on advisory. And we can talk about that as we go along this webinar. But that is something that
yeah,
I'm really trying to promote to our
yeah,
firms now.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Right. So that's the landscape. So and just in terms of this, and I think looking ahead, I posted on LinkedIn this morning. There's some research that McKinsey, a strategy consultancy, very big, well-respected strategy consultancy, did, which is why I'm happy to quote this stat, because if it wasn't McKinsey, I'd be a little bit cautious about doing it. But McKinsey are hugely respected, and they did some research around the impact of AI on work. And they said that by 2030, 60% of everything that we do in work today, we're not going to need to do,
mm,
because AI and technology is going to do it for us.
yeah,
So on one hand, that's quite frightening,
yeah,
because it's a case of, so 60% of everything that we charge for at the moment, we're not going to be able to charge for. That's perhaps a bit unfair, because not everything that is in that 60% is stuff we're charging clients for. It
yeah,
will be some of our internal stuff, our marketing, because we're talking about work generally. But equally, there's an opportunity which says, wow, you're going to have 60% more capacity.
yeah,
What are you going to do with that capacity?
yeah,
Now, for me, that's great. That's 60% more time we've got to spend with clients. helping to
Exactly.
achieve their goals, objectives, and everything else.
Yeah.
Um, so we have an exciting opportunity ahead of us, and those firms that grab this opportunity now are going to be the firms that win. In the
I
same way, firms that adopted cloud accounting early on had that first mover advantage. Is that agree with all that, Mel?
100% agree with that. And I was talking to a North American accountant this week who said exactly that to me. He said 6 months ago when I spoke to you, we were a little bit half-hearted about taking Spotlight on because we really hadn't got the time, he said. But this time he was super keen, asking me a million questions. And that was purely because he said to me, look, we've learned how to use Zero properly now. I've got my team working everything so smoothly that we've actually eased up a lot of time. And like you said, he got 20% more time than he had 6 months ago for
Yeah,
no other reason. He'd got exactly the same number of clients, but he was just using the technology he'd got in a better way.
yeah,
Um, he'd got the staff trained up better, and he was eager to basically, get out there and find out how to do some more advisory work now, or to do some advisory work,
yeah,
which I thought was really exciting. And I think that's the way that firms are going to see times changing. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And just kind of anecdotally, I mean, you're talking to lots of firms, Mel. Are you seeing a clear kind of uptick in firms' desire and appetite for advisory, even if they struggle to follow through and implement? Is it a fair assumption to say that more firms are recognizing that they've got to do something here?
certainly the ones I'm talking to, definitely. Yes. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously there are a lot of firms I'm not talking to
Yes.
um, that are very
But
compliant.
yeah, very happy to have a conversation with, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to talk to. Yeah, but yes, certainly the ones I'm talking to are very eager to find out
Okay.
more about how to do everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So as we kind of step into thinking about the skills element, which is obviously the crux
yeah,
of this session, um, what are the things that you think are holding firms back? What are the things that are stopping them being able to make this happen, given that everybody seems to agree that it's the right thing to do, but
yeah.
we're still seeing that the majority of firms are still making probably 90% of their revenue from compliance services.
Absolutely. I mean, I've got a couple of examples recently of where I've been in a room full of client managers, and I'm talking to them about how to do advisory, etc. And there was one group recently who I just said, look, why don't you, as well as sending out this monthly flash report, which looks really smooth for your clients, they'll never have seen anything like this before. Why don't you record yourself doing a little Loom video
Mm.
um, alongside the flash report and just say, oh, your gross profit trend's going upwards. This is because of X, Y, and Z. And they looked at me like blank faces, and they looked at each other and they were like, oh no, I don't do Loom videos. No, I'm not doing that. I think it's a confidence piece, hugely so. And I've seen this so many times. I've got so many examples of it. Oh, I just do the numbers. Do you see her out there? She's the one that makes the phone calls. And I think it's really interesting. I mean, I'm not talking about everybody at all, but I think that there are a lot of people out there who brand an accountant as being somebody who is just the one to churn the numbers out. And
Mm.
actually, the accountant nowadays, needs those soft skills as well, needs to be able to pick the phone up, ask the questions, as we keep saying,
Yeah,
talk to the clients, find out more about not just the client's business, but where they want to go in life in general and what they want to do with their business and really help guide them towards those goals.
yeah.
Um,
And I'm assuming you see all the obvious things like we'd love to do it. We're just too busy. We haven't got enough
oh
time.
yeah, tons,
Um,
yeah,
uh,
tons of that,
and,
yeah.
and any other kind of headline barriers to kind of implementation that you see?
It's all about having a plan, and I think we'll talk about this in this thing called
Yeah,
Transform in Action that we've got going forwards, and we're about to launch. I think it's all about having a plan as a firm. You need to know exactly where you're going with advisory. So a barrier to entry would be, not having a clear idea of how to monetize advisory, not
Yeah.
having a clear idea of how to what services are you going to offer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you were
So
saying at the start, what is advisory? Oh, shall we start
yeah.
producing some monthly flash reports to our clients? How much should we charge our clients for that? They've got no clue.
Okay. And
Also, I could talk for hours, but another guy I spoke to yesterday, in fact, was talking about, oh, well, should I stop? You've got to change the way you charge fees to your clients. He was going, so should I stop charging by the hour because I'm actually spending less time on my clients now, so my fees are going to go down. And I said, no, you need to have, charge for value, and actually make your clients value those reports. And yeah, so there's a whole ethos about everything around barriers to it's just a different way of running a firm, I think.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And these are all really part of what we set out to talk about here in terms of uh, an apparent skills gap.
yeah,
Because actually all of the things that we've talked about there are a combination of either soft skills, management skills. What we haven't flagged as an issue is anything about technical ability to be able to do
yeah,
this stuff.
yeah,
Is that us saying that as accountants and bookkeepers, we are suitably equipped with the technical ability to be able to do advisory, whatever that looks like?
definitely. I mean, 1,000%. I think anybody that's out there are so many business coaches out there nowadays, aren't there, that aren't financially skilled.
Yeah,
So I think that accountants are the best person out there to be advising their clients because they understand the link between the balance sheet, the P&L, and the cash. It's very simple. They understand what drivers drive cash.
yeah,
Like we were talking earlier. So I think that the technical skills of the accountants are absolutely best placed to be the best advisors out there. Yeah,
yeah. Which
yeah,
which basically therefore leaves the fact that the impact effectively of the advisory skills gap, the gap sits with soft skills,
yeah,
mindset, all of those other kind of things. And the impact is simply that because we're not focusing on these soft skills, we are leaving money on the table.
yeah,
We are failing to add the amount of value to clients that we possibly could be and
yeah,
want to be.
yeah.
Um, and the solution to that is completely in our own control and power.
Totally, totally. And that's where it's very exciting. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. I mean, there are so many
Okay.
SMEs out there at the moment that don't understand where they are or where they're going. Yeah, so yeah,
Okay.
super
Uh,
exciting.
so let's think about some of the skills then, and if we
Yeah,
think maybe think about this in terms of the process. So, advise any advisory work is going to start from a point of recognizing that there is an opportunity.
yes, yeah,
Um, uh, is that hurdle number one when most people fall over because either they don't know how to spot the opportunity, their team haven't been coached or trained on how to spot opportunities, they're not talking to their clients
yeah.
regularly enough, and they're not asking the right questions.
I think all of the above will.
Right.
Yeah. I think you can't spot an opportunity if you don't talk to your clients. I
Yeah.
mean, when I used to have my practice, I mean, there were some clients I just spoke to once a year. I mean,
Yeah.
and you'd always be talking about their backwards reports from
Yeah.
12 months ago. So, so how can you spot an opportunity? You don't know them well enough.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's all linked. It's all linked. But I think it comes back to just understanding the clients, picking up the phone, having the confidence to ask them a few questions. The firms I'm talking to now who are taking on advisory clients are literally going through questionnaires with them on engagement, and the
Yeah.
questionnaire would be around not just the business, it would be around the whole person. So really gaining a good understanding of that person and
And
that.
do you provide those questions, those frameworks as part of your proposition within
Yeah, yeah.
Spotlight? Yeah.
So we've got something called Transform in Action, which Richard, our CEO, and Julie have basically it's evolved over time, but a new version of it is
Yeah.
being released, I believe, in the next couple of weeks, and I can talk you
Great.
through that.
And we're gonna talk about that in just a moment, aren't we?
Yeah,
So
so yeah,
great.
and that covers all sorts of areas to really
Yeah.
help and educate our customers. Yeah.
Perfect. So uh what are you seeing firms doing to overcome the the gap, if that's the term we're using here, in terms of team members being able to do this first stage in the process to identify the opportunities?
I think lots of things. I think the first thing I always say to people is just have the confidence to know what skills, what services you can offer.
Mm.
Advertise that on your website. Yes, I can do a monthly reporting service. I can do a forecasting service. They've never done that before, and package up that service exactly as it is with a
Yeah.
monetary value on it, and then educate the staff. So the staff have got to know. We suggest introducing KPIs within the firm. So I don't think many accountancy firms would have their own KPIs. I certainly didn't when I did it. Being brave, having an NPS score, and get your
Yeah.
clients to actually recommend you and tell you the good and the bad and the ugly.
Yeah.
Um, and also, get the junior members of staff to actually, as well as running the report for the client, so churning out the numbers, actually creating the Loom video, which I was talking
Yeah.
about earlier. So actually looking at the numbers and understanding it, so it becomes much more of an interesting job for the junior staff members to be
Yeah.
doing, than to be just reconciling bank statements, which is what I used to do when I was there.
So
So yeah, and mentoring the other, you've got people that are mentoring the partners and sitting in on meetings and learning how to actively listen to the clients. I think that's really important.
yeah, so we've got that first piece in terms of spot the opportunities. I guess the second bit where we could argue that there's gaps in skills is the sales process. And
Yes.
I guess so much of this is around conversations around pricing,
Yeah.
being able to articulate and focus on the outcomes.
Yeah.
Because what I hear all the time is people say, "Oh yeah, I speak to my clients about cash flow forecasting and reports, and they just don't seem very interested."
Yeah.
And normally the reason for that is because they're doing exactly what they told me they're doing, which is talking to customers about cash flow forecasting and reporting.
Yeah.
And of course, the customer is going to say, "Oh, yeah, I don't think I need that,"
Yeah.
because we're coming at it from the wrong end, aren't we? In terms
Yeah.
of if we understand the client wants to take out an extra £20,000 a year,
Yeah.
we can work back from that and say, well, to take £20,000 a year extra, these are the
Yeah.
things you've got to do.
Yeah.
One of
Absolutely.
that is we've got to be monitoring your numbers. We've got to be putting some forecasts in place, some
Yeah.
growth targets, and we can help you do that, and we can help you get that £20,000. We're going to charge you £5,000 to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, oh, okay. Well, but maybe I need to take 25 then, so I can pay you the five and get you the 20. Absolutely fine. No problem at all. We'll work on
Yeah.
getting 25.
Yeah, exactly that. I think the monetizing piece is quite tricky, and that's what I always say to people, which works really well. Is if I keep talking about the monthly flash report, just a one-pager report that a lot of clients haven't even seen before. A lot
Mm,
of people will give that out alongside a compliance report, like a VAT report, for example, VAT return, and they might give it out for free for a first 3 months,
yep.
and and you would have to invest a little bit of time in educating the clients on what that report is showing them. But
Mm,
you bet your bottom dollar about 80% of people after that 3 months will start happily paying a couple of £100 for one of those, going
mm,
forwards, because they start to understand. They've got to really understand the numbers and what it's showing them and how it's helping their business.
yep.
Um, yeah, so we talk through lots of different ways that people can successfully monetize advisory, which is the
Yep.
tricky bit. Yeah,
Because
that
that's
people.
always the other kind of challenge I throw at people. We're probably all doing advisory, but most of us are not charging for it.
Yeah,
Is the other component here, isn't it? Because we
is
just answer stuff for clients. Clients, that famous question, can you just? Of course we can just.
Yeah, of
And
course.
we and again, I'm sure from your firm owner days, you'll remember
Oh, yeah.
responding to those. Can you just do this for me? Oh, of course.
Oh, yeah. You had those clients highlighted that were the ones that were on the phone every day going,
Absolutely.
ah, yeah, yeah, I remember.
So we've done identify opportunity, we've done kind of pitching and monetizing. It's then delivery. And I think this is probably where we're saying actually if we can upskill in those other two areas, this is the bit that we've got nailed. It's like
Yeah.
we know how to do it. There's probably an element of time management and priority management that we need to address here to make sure that we can do the work amongst all of the compliance that we have to do. Again, how are you seeing firms manage that part of the process?
Yeah, the delivery. I mean, it's the firms I talk to are so different. I've got some very, very big firms and some one-man band type,
Mm.
fractional CFO types.
Yeah,
So I think it's all about having that human touch again somehow. So if you're one of the small firms that is able to go out and see the clients and talk to them and nurture that relationship, then you can do the delivery piece quite easily just by just by literally spending some time with them. The bigger firms are finding it a lot harder because they've got the volume to play with. But that's
yeah,
where the Loom video comes in. And, I've got
yeah,
lots of firms saying to me, oh, I'm now getting Loom video replies from clients,
yeah.
sending an email
Well,
back with a question on Loom video, which I said, oh, that's amazing. They're really,
yeah,
really interested in understanding the numbers a bit more.
yeah,
And the other piece that we do at Spotlight is, the client can actually have access to their numbers, so they can actually access their own Spotlight account. So
yeah,
the ones that are super keen, and there are lots of business owners who are super keen, can actually have a play and have a play with the forecast and see
yeah,
how the cash is going to look once they get the hang of it. So I think that's a really interesting way that I really try and promote.
yeah.
Yeah, to the
Excellent.
actual client. Yeah.
Are there any skills that you think are critical for successfully delivering advisory that we haven't touched on yet?
Yeah, I
Or-
mean, there's absolutely listening, active listening, and I think that goes without saying. You've got to be an active listener, and you've got to be able to. It's a bit like when my kids talk to me. When you've got a teenager grunting at you most of the time, but when they actually do come and talk to you, and they ask you something, you're like, okay, that this is important. I've got to actually act on this. So I think
Mm,
active listening is hugely key.
yeah,
Um, and if you've got somebody asking you something, then they really do want to know the answer to it, and you can really help them. Yeah. So I think that's really key. Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
So let's start to think about the strategies and the solutions because we've said advisory is growing, everyone wants to do it. There are some skills gaps, but
Yeah.
not in technical ability. It's all of the systems, the process, the soft skills that
Yeah.
we need to be able to bridge this gap
Yeah.
to enable us to have a positive impact on clients we serve, generate new revenue, but we kind of need help to do it. So let's look at some of the solutions here,
Solution.
and
Yeah.
talk a little bit about transforming action and kind of where this has come from and how it's helping your partner firms.
Yeah, so Richard Francis, who I keep talking about, he wrote a book called Transform, which is free to download, and it's a really valuable resource. And Transform in Action, I guess, is the online version of this that we give access to all of our customers, all of our bigger customers. And if you can just flick onto the next slide. So Transform in Action takes you through lots of videos and lots of resources that you can download from our experience of how to set up advisory within your practice. So how to define what your strategy might be, how to identify some clients to try it on, how to choose what sort of services, what advisory services you're going to offer, and how to monetize those, how to scale up your team, and again, how to set some KPIs so that your firm has an idea, like advisory revenue per team member. It just has an idea of how you're tracking in terms of bringing the revenue in and not giving advisory out for free. So it's a really good resource. Highly recommend it. We're about to refresh it, so like I said, it will come out as a new version in a couple of weeks' time. Lots of little videos to watch and lots of PDFs and things to download, and some call scripts on there on how to actually get an advisory conversation going with a client.
Yeah, perfect. And I think strategy is key here. And I did some roadshows last year with accountants and bookkeepers around the country. I did seven events,
Oh, wow.
uh, and it was all around effectively thinking about how you improve your own firms. And I did a straw poll survey
Yeah.
amongst the audience in terms of who has a plan. I
Yeah.
made it very clear that it wasn't a case of this had to be a 40-page business plan, but some level of plan for the next 12 months, 36 months, 5 years, whatever period you might have thought about. Um, and it was 2%
Really?
of the audience of
I can believe
accountants and
that.
bookkeepers that
Wow.
were, I mean, some might just have been too shy to put their hands up. It was a face-to-face event. But even if there were, the likelihood of it being over 10% was minimal.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a plan, you have no destination. You're never going to get
No.
there. And that can be as simple as I'd like to add 20% to my revenue this year.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a plan. Just saying it and then thinking, well, what does that look like? What do I need to do that? Um,
Totally agree. Yeah.
this is stuff that we wouldn't even dream of not talking to a client about. Have you got a plan? Yet for
Yes,
our
exactly.
firm,
Exactly. And
we
yeah.
kind of just
Yeah,
wander
look at your
along.
own firm and see where you're actually going with it. I speak to so many people, and I was in the same old, compliance, just routine of submitting VAT returns and tax returns. Oh, it's another self-assessment deadline. Let's do that. Yeah, you can just get stuck in that hamster wheel. But if you do set yourself an advisory plan, like you say, then yeah, you can highlight some clients, you can target them, you can monetize it, and
Yeah,
amazing. You can start
yeah.
actually launching into a whole new world of really juicy work. Um,
And the Transform in Action platform is that available to everybody or just your partners? And if it's the latter, what's kind of the entry level in terms of the way that you work with partners?
Yeah, so going forwards, it will be available to anybody who's on what we call our Super VCFO plan. So that will
Yeah,
be anybody who has up to 50 clients on
yeah,
Spotlight, and above. So yeah, absolutely, which is the majority of our firms.
yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, and I'm very excited about launching that with our practices in the next couple of
Excellent.
weeks. Yeah.
Look forward to seeing that all go live.
Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
are edging towards the end of the session, so if anybody has any questions, do pop them in the Q&A box. I always like to kind of wrap up these sessions, Mel, with some key takeaways, and we've had to think about this in terms of what are the key points that we want you to take away from today's session to go and have impact in what you do in your firms. Do you want to take us through these three from your perspective, Mel?
Yeah, I think we've just talked about it already, but the absolute key takeaways, I think, are to firstly find out, what your advisory services are that you're going to offer. Is that going to be just reporting, or is that going to be actual forecasting and reporting? And what sort of levels of reporting are you going to offer your clients? So have a really good think about that. And then number two, set up a plan for scaling it. So yeah, it's super exciting, but once you get going with it, you can start seeing your clients getting excited about it. So work out how you're going to scale it, and that is how I very much work with our firms.
Yeah,
And then number three, which I think is, we keep saying, one of the most important thing, without a shadow of doubt, is getting back to face time with your clients and being human with them.
yeah.
Having those contact points, as many as you possibly can, with the
Yeah,
client.
yeah. I mean, number three, obviously for me, having written a book called The Human Firm last year,
Yeah.
this is critical.
Yeah.
Really getting to build strong relationships with our clients, understanding their drivers, understanding their objectives, what they're trying to achieve, because we can't help people if we don't know them.
No.
So the whole point of this is that we need to get to know people to be able to help them in the way they need and want that support. And just on the back of kind of the whole topic here, Mel, what do you see as kind of the big benefits that your partner firms that do this successfully are seeing? What are the real benefits and outcomes they're getting?
Oh, huge benefits in terms of reputation for the firm. People that are using our reports having a competitive advantage over all of the other accountants in the area because everybody's flooding to them. So fee revenue, it is and client trust is really improving.
Mm.
And it goes without saying, but it's really difficult to recruit and retain really good staff at the moment. So people
Yeah,
that are at the more junior level within a practice are doing more interesting work. And I think
yeah,
that's really key for the future of the accountancy profession, the industry as a whole. So
yeah,
lots of
very
things, as
much so.
well as obviously the fee revenue going
Yeah.
going up because you've got a completely new revenue stream. That's
Yeah,
as well.
that career development point is a really critical one. That recruit and retain. We need to change the perception. We're seeing decreasing numbers of students
Yeah,
wanting to come into accountancy.
yeah,
We've got to make it exciting. And
yes,
we
yes,
have an opportunity because what we do is exciting. It can be exciting.
yes,
Need to create these opportunities for our team members to get
yeah,
involved in really impactful work.
yeah,
Really exciting times ahead. If you want to have a conversation with Mel, her contact details are now on the screen. I'm sure Mel will be very happy to take any questions and give you demos and all of that kind of thing and
yeah.
share some of her experiences of the firms that she's working with. So let me come off here. Have we got any final questions? Nothing in the box at the moment. We have had one, but Holly in the background has kindly
Okay,
answered that. So thank you,
brilliant.
Holly. So if we have no questions, I have achieved what I set out to do. We are just
Brilliant.
past quarter to 11. Um, so everyone's got a chance to go and get their coffees and everything else. I hope the session's been valuable. I think this is a critical topic as we look to what the next 5 years
Mm,
is going to bring to us as a profession. These increasing client demands, a further adoption of technology, which is going to take more of the mundane work that we've had to do
yeah,
for the best part of the last however many hundreds of years.
ever.
So we have a great opportunity. Let's grab the opportunity with two hands. Let's get to know our clients better and deliver services that really make an impact on their personal and business lives.
Yeah.
Um, Thank you very much, Mel, for your
Mhm.
insights. Hugely valuable. We will circulate a copy of the recording to everybody with Mel's contact details. So anything that you need, you can pick up from that. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us. I hope you found it useful. Keep an eye out for the recording. You can watch back any bits that you want to hear again. And we look forward to seeing you on next month's App of the Month webinar in October. Thank you to the Spotlight team for their help in pulling this together. And I hope everybody enjoys the rest of the week and has a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Will. Thank you for
Thank you all
inviting
very much. Thanks,
me.
Mel. Take
Thank you.
care and
Good to
look forward to
chat.
seeing you
Bye
soon.
bye.
Bye bye,
Thanks.
everybody.
Bye.